Welcome again to the Daughters of Liberty. Today we have something kind of fun, and that is some curious colonial household objects. And these are just a few of what might have been in a colonial house that you might not have in a modern house. And I'm going to first do this one. Now, take into consideration it's missing a handle. Most of these things, all except one, and while we're going through this, think about which one you think might not be authentic 18th century. All but one are 18th century artifacts. So here, as you watch, just kind of a guessing game. And at the end, I'll tell you which one is a reproduction. But for now, here is a little object that would have been commonly found in a colonial house. Now, it's missing a handle, like I said, and the way it would be used is going back and forth. Can you guess what this might be? This is what you would use to grind corn or grain. You would have a bowl, and you would grind your grains in it. Other ways that you would grind grains are in mills or take them out to the mill. But if you were in the wilderness and didn't have access to a mill in your area, here is a hand mill. And this is made out of very heavy hickory. And it has been mended several times. There are nails holding it together. A thing that you might not find in the modern kitchen that you could find in your colonial kitchen. Here's another thing that you might have in your colonial household. Looks like a funny little pitcher. It's actually fairly well decorated. It's made of brass. It has little lions' heads on it. You'll see that it has kind of corrosion on the inside, almost acidic corrosion. What this is actually is a very upscale measuring device. And this would measure ash that you would use then in making soap. And the acid from the ash has really discolored the brass inside. So there's another little item. Here's one of my favorites, not the number one favorite. We'll get to that. This would be a woman's best friend in the colonies because when she's going to meetings or things, they're not heated. This stems from the New Jersey colony in the 1700s. It is a foot warmer. And so it would open up. It's made of tulip wood. It would open up, and inside is the little article where you would put coals, hot coals, maybe hot rocks, things like that that might keep heat. And so you would put them in there and then very carefully put your wood cover, and you have your handle. And then drilled around it are little ventilation holes all the way around it, which on the top, the largest holes, and on the corners to let off the heat. I love it that initials of somebody in the 18th century, they put their initials and drilled that, and I think this is just precious. So you would actually put your feet on this, and then if you're sitting in meeting or somewhere, it would help keep your feet nice and warm, and that heat would radiate up your petticoat. And so that's a lovely little thing that most people don't have today. Now, in your household, here's another little object that you may or may not have had. And this is a brown Betty. And what this is actually a oil lamp. And so you would fill it with whale oil, you would have a wick, and then you would light it, and you would hang this. And this hanger is also, you could take it off the little hook, and I'm not going to do it right now, but you would also use this to clean your little oil lamp. And you might have a few of these. Remember, candles were very expensive, and generally speaking, unless you were lucky to have a nice beeswax candle or a bayberry candle, they were smelly. They're made of tallow, and so you smell not really good. So you're going to have little oil lamps. Other things that you might have, and this would be, again, for a higher-end household, this is a crumb tray. The lower-end households might get rid of their crumbs like this and let the The dogs take care of it. Or you might go like this into a crumb tray. There's a hole in the end, and then you take care of your table that way. So here we have a little wooden paddle. I like this because it still feels greasy. And what this is, it's a butter paddle. Now, when you get the butter out of the butter churn, and you're going to put it in a bowl, and then you're going to salt your butter and mold your butter, you're not going to use your hands. And we're not worried about germs at that time, but our hands are warm, and we don't want the butter melting. So you have butter paddles. And this is a fairly large one that would be used to get most of that butter out of the butter churn itself. You could have spoons, and spoons would work. But the nice thing about this one, as opposed to a spoon, it's flat and goes all the way around the butter churn. And then you would put it in the bowl and arrange it that way. So you're not going to use your hands. And so that's what that is for. So we're busy making things. We want to make something that would be good with the butter. So we're going to make some dough and some bread. Here's an article, and this is a dough scraper. And I love this. It's hand forged, and in the forge they went to decorate it a little bit. And then it has a little nail that you could tie some lashing onto and hang it. This is a dough scrape. So if you had a flat surface that you're kneading your dough, or a large dough bowl, you'll use this, and you cut your dough and then scrape it all together. If you're making biscuits, then you take this and you cut it in equal portions to make your biscuits. Now, you've put your loaf in the oven, and so you need to get it out. Here's another object that just might not be in everybody's house. And this is a cast iron bread peel. And so you'll put this under your loaf of bread to pull it out of the oven. Now, they didn't have hot pads in that day so much. So you would use, a nice linen cloth, your towel, because the heat would, of course, radiate up your iron. Again, if you're a higher echelon family, this is made in the 1760s, and it's made out of sterling. It needs to be polished, but with artifacts that are as old as this, you don't want to polish them too often. And this little thing, it opens up, and then it closes, and it opens in here. Can you guess what this might be? Some people thought it's a lamp, and though I imagine you could probably use it as a small oil lamp, that's not its use. This was meant to go under a tea kettle, where you would have a tea kettle that's raised on a little stand, and then you would keep that kettle nice and warm. And then you would close it when you're done. So this is a tea warmer. Other things we have. Of course, if the ladies wanted to feel fancy, they might curl their hair. This is a nice little wrought iron curling iron. We have a toddy rod or a flip dog, and that is what you would put into the fire, and then you would use it to heat something in your drink or something that you wanted to make. Here is something that might be in a colonial household or a pocket of a gentleman who is roaming about fighting the revolution. And this is a mini ball maker. So you'd pour your melted pewter or lead into this, and it's a mold for your bullets. And then, of course, when your bullet came out, you would have to polish it and shave it and take care of that. But that might be around. Here we have a fun little wick trimmer. And remember those candles in the colonies? They're not clean paraffin. They're made out of tallow and grease and things like that. And very common, you'd use candle snuffers. You'd be careful blowing out candles. You want to keep your wicks trimmed. You'd make sure to maintain your candles well so that you didn't cause fire. Sugar was a rare commodity. We're talking white sugar, and it came on very hard cones. And so you're going to use a sugar nipper. And the sugar nipper might be a way to scrape the sugar off the cone for your tea, or to scrape chunks off and then pound for baked goods. Our last little item here, and this is my favorite. And this, can you guess, looks like a little bellows, and it is a little bellows. Can you guess what it might be used for? It has a little cork and a hole, and it would go up and down, and it's not for fire. You'd put powder in there, and then you would powder your wigs. Isn't that fun? I just love this little one. So have you guessed which one of my articles is not actually 18th century? And it is this one. And this, though it is a replica of an actual 18th century gadget. But this is a replica, and it is handmade cast iron. But this can be purchased at some of your revolutionary supply store, and that is your toddy rod. But I was just enchanted by it, and I couldn't find the exact thing yet. But here are some 18th century artifacts that might be in your colonial household that you probably don't find in today's household. I hope you enjoyed our little foray into history. Thank you.